railway journey leads to Scotland. Traveling by train, we cross the country from east to west. Scotland, a land of contrasts, with sweet valleys and desolate highlands. A country of bagpipes, whiskey, myths and legends. Also a country of splendid architecture dating from a glorious past. The rail brings us all these beautiful things. Starting from the east, the train crosses the Scottish landscape to arrive at the west coast, the Atlantic. This small station of Berwick is the starting point of our journey. We are waiting for the train to take us for the first part of the trip. The Scottish like to travel, especially by train. The modern trains bring them fast and comfortably to their destination. Berwick lies in a marvelous valley, crossed by the River Tweed. Through the ages, this place has been alternately under Scottish and English rule. Since 1482, it has been definitely English, but it has still kept its Scottish charisma during the last 500 years. As soon as the train has left the station of Berwick, the landscape shows us its beauty. At full speed, the intercity train is heading for Edinburgh. On our way to this cultural capital of the British Islands, we pass part of the magnificent rocky coast.
We apologise to you for the late running and late travel of your service. Customers travelling on to Haymarket or Glasgow Green Street, your service now departs from Edinburgh at 4:30.
The Scottish capital, Edinburgh, has been built with the intention to impress. This can be noticed on arrival at the beautiful central station. Poets have commended the city for its rich cultural life as the Athens of the North. The often raw weather and the desolate Highlands, however, hardly recall Greek capital. Edinburgh Castle dominates the city, guarding its age-old history. The majestic fortress was built in the 11th century and is situated on top of the steep cliffs of Castle Rock. The culture is also present in the music so popular in this place. In the old quarter, at the base of the castle, picturesque streets, pubs, parks, and shops doing good trade can be found. The newer quarter is a good example of 18th century city planning. Magnificent mansions are standing here along broad streets. Not far from Edinburgh is the inlet Firth of Forth. Ever since the year 1070, a ferry has plied between the shores of this waterway. The ferry was removed after the completion of the railway bridge. This bridge, measuring 2,500 meters, was built between 1883 and 1890. The costs have not been earned back yet, so whoever wants to use this bridge has to pay toll. This immense steel colossus incorporates more than 55,000 tons of steel. This steel rests upon concrete piles measuring 3 meters across. The bridge demands major repairs. First, 20 painters are engaged throughout the year. Crossing the bridge at an altitude of 46 meters above the water level is a real happening. Back to the station at the Scottish capital. It is crowded when we prepare for the next part of our journey. From Edinburgh, we set off for Glasgow, Scotland's second city. The journey leads through the narrowest piece of the country. The landscape here is rather flat, in contrast with most other parts of the country. Glasgow is a real port and industrial town. With almost 1 million inhabitants, it's Scotland's biggest city. We arrive at Queen Street Station. Glasgow's outskirts are impoverished and not really beautiful. The old centre, on the other hand, is magnificent. Many monumental buildings and statues of Scottish heroes like David Livingstone and James Watt adorn this busy city. George Square is the centre of the town. The most striking building on this square is City Chambers. It was opened in 1888 by Queen Victoria. This beautiful building has marble staircases and pillars made of alabaster. Along the banks of the River Kelvin, this special greenhouse is situated in the magnificent Royal Botanical Gardens. In various greenhouses, cactuses, orchids, begonias, and water plants grow. There are countless sorts of ferns and palm trees. The royal garden is completed by Greek and Roman sculptures. Here in the middle of town, the visitor can find a haven of peace. Queen Street Station is one of Glasgow's two main stations. From this place, trains depart for the Highlands in the north of Scotland. From Central Station in Hope Street, trains go to the southwest and England. Our train leaves for Fort William in the north, one of Scotland's most popular holiday destinations. Just outside Glasgow, we notice again how green Scotland is. Unfortunately, all this green can only grow if there is enough rain. Rain clouds filling up with water above the Atlantic like to drop their load here. The next hours, we enjoy its magnificent result.
Double 270, upper Tyndrum Bridge work on display, permission to proceed, over.
Double 270, permission to proceed from upper Tyndrum to the Downstillboard Bridge work, over.
Roger out.
Most train passengers go to Fort William to see Ben Nevis. At 1,344 meters, Great Britain's highest mountain. Others travel this way just to do some shopping.
Oh, we live at Carrower, and we just go to Fort William to get groceries once a week.
Of course, you can go shopping anywhere in Scotland. But now we're on our way to the region where the whiskey stems from. Also, the area around Fort William is famous for its high-quality whiskey. Fort William owes its popularity to the mountain Ben Nevis. Although most visitors pay only attention to the mountains, they pass over the beauty of Glen Nevis. This magnificent glaciated valley lies north of the town. The pure water flowing out of the rocks is the base of the whiskey.
Well, if we didn't have the waterfall, we just wouldn't be able to make the whiskey. It's the water drawn from the foot of this waterfall that's piped straight into the distillery, and the only treatment it gets is a very light filter to remove any leaves or twigs or maybe the odd rabbit or two. We don't want to make lumpy whiskey. And we heat that water and mix it with crushed malted barley. The yeast reacts with the sugars from the sweet water and it begins to ferment. Like brewing, we're creating alcohol. And the fermentation rises and rises right to the top of the vat. And when the strength of the alcohol reaches 8% alcohol by volume, it kills off the yeast and the fermentation dies back. Well, we call this wash. The wash containing the alcohol is then distilled. Mother Nature has very cleverly arranged that the boiling point of water be 100 degrees centigrade and the boiling point of alcohol 78 degrees centigrade. So when we boil the wash in the still, the steam that rises first will be the alcohol. Well, it's clear spirit because all spirit is clear when it is originally distilled. There is no colour at this stage. The initial colour will come from the cask that it matures in. Going back to the days of original distilling, which of course was illicit distilling, the farmer or the distiller, usually both the same person, was producing a spirit for his own consumption. And sometimes he made just a little more than he could actually consume. So he kept some of it for future. And he found that the longer he kept that spirit, the better it seemed to become, especially if he was keeping it in an old sherry cask. And now, traditionally, Scotch whisky must be matured for at least 3 years and 1 day before it can be legally described as Scotch whisky.
In countless sheds like these in the surroundings of Fort William, whiskey ripens in thousands of casks. Not until tasters have approved to it will this whiskey be bottled, to find its way around the world. And now back to the railway. In summertime, ScotRail uses a special steam train, the Lochaber. This nostalgic train is in perfect condition.
Well, the local weighs about 120 tonne, that's it, in working order, coal and water. Carries about 11 tonnes of coal, and we use 3 tonnes of coal between Fort William and Mallaig and back to Fort William. We're limited, speed-wise, we're limited to 40 mile an hour maximum. Some parts are 30 miles an hour. And on the main line, this engine could do 80, 90 mile an hour, I'm quite sure, without any bother. Again, there are speed restrictions, and they're limited to a lower speed than that. But it's quite capable of 80 or 90 miles an hour. The engine was built about 1947, and that's about the same vintage as myself. So it's got about the same service as myself, and I hope I'm wearing as well as it's wearing. It's doing very well. A very good engine.
From Fort William, we travel on to the west, through the West Highlands, in the direction of Mallaig. This section is known as one of the finest in the British Islands. We pass the 300 meters long Glenfinnan Viaduct. Having at least 21 arches, it once was among the first and biggest concrete viaducts in the world. The construction of the 64-kilometer section to Mallaig was very expensive. Sometimes the rail crosses rocks, other times swamps. The constructors must have overcome many difficulties to build the railroad here. This section comprises 11 tunnels, various large viaducts, and steep gradients. The steam locomotive passes Loch Morar, Scotland's deepest lake. The rumor goes that this lake is the hiding place of Morar, a monster that might be a second cousin to the one in Loch Ness. Going down the slopes of the West Highlands, we catch sight of the Atlantic. After this surprising journey, the train arrives at Mallaig. The small town of Mallaig owes its existence to the trade. From this fishing port, the fish had to be transported to the hinterland. But it's been a long time since the last catches of herrings were transported by train to the markets in the south. Nowadays, the town mainly depends on the tourists arriving here by train. A lot of them take in Mallaig, a ferry to one of the many western islands. But the fishermen are still here. Along the magnificent shores, they fish for salmon, herring, and shrimps. Daily, the boats leave the harbor of Mallaig. We sail with them. Rolling on the water of South Sleat, the fishermen are looking for a good place to throw out their nets. The life of a Scottish fisherman is not easy. Today the catch is minimal, some herring and shrimps. However, a couple of these catches is enough to make a living. The fishermen are satisfied with it. Chauvinistic as they are, the Scottish are very attached to their country and their homes, to be able to live and work in this beautiful country.